Welcome to AOE Live, episode number 8. We're recording this show live on Tuesday, June 9th. We'll be joined tonight by Cassidy Reinken, who will talk to us about integrating STEAM education into the classroom on scales both big and small. My name is Tim Bogatz, a high school teacher from Omaha, Nebraska.
Hey, and I'm Andrew McCormick, and I'm a middle school art teacher from Cedar Falls, and we are lucky to be joined tonight by Cassidy Reinken, who some of you guys are going to recognize from The Art of Ed. She's formerly a writer and instructor for AOE. Most recently, she co-authored AOE's ChoiceBased Art class, which is really excellent. I love everything about that class. I'm currently into it right now. She's also transitioned from her role as a middle school art teacher and specialist to now a magnet coordinator at the Johnston STEAM Academy Magnet School in Cedar Rapids Community School District. The Johnston STEAM Academy opens this fall, and Cassidy has been really enjoying her new role, and I know she's super busy. So Cassidy, we really enjoy that you're making time for us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for joining us. We also want to say hello to our listeners and those of you that are watching live on Crowdcast. If you are on Crowdcast, go ahead and send your questions our way.
Yep, and you guys, as always, can chat with us at the hashtag AOE Live on Twitter. You can upvote some things during the Crowdcast so we can make sure to ask Cassidy those questions. And tonight, we've done this before, but it's been a while. We have a poll, so feel free to stop by and kind of check that out and give us your 2 cents on some thoughts on all things STEAM.
All right, and as always, once we're done tonight, the podcast will be available on the AOE Live page, and will go up later this week on iTunes and Stitcher. Listen to it on your drive to school, at home in the evening, or even during your plan time.
All right, so Cassidy, tonight we're going to be focusing on kind of 3 big tenets that I think everyone will get a lot out of. Number 1 is, how can we all learn from a STEAM magnet school model? What could we all learn from that? Mm-hmm. Number 2, how can arts integration and STEAM education revitalize a school and a community that maybe needs some revitalization? And number 3, how do we build teacher buy-in for new educational paradigms like STEAM education or PBL or arts integration? So with that, Tim, I'll let you kind of throw the first question at Cassidy.
All right. Cassidy, can you just tell us a little bit about sort of your own, I guess, personal journey in education before we get to kind of the development of your new school?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So my education journey started before I even realized I was on this journey. My mom was an art teacher. She's retired now, so I spent many hours in her art studio when she was grading or cleaning or organizing. So I was kind of an art teacher before I knew it. And so then I went to college, and I really didn't want to admit how much I was like my mom. So I had to make that phone call and tell my parents that I declared my major for art education, which, of course, they're really proud and happy. But if you know my mom and know me, we're a lot alike. So sometimes we kind of butt heads. But so I kind of started. That's how I started in art. And then I started my career teaching in Cedar Rapids in elementary. And we had some budget cuts, and so my position was cut. And so I was transferred to a middle school, and I never would have applied for that job, but I ended up loving it. And it was the best job ever, and it was really hard for me to leave. But I came to this point where I really wanted to kind of be a part of systems change and be a part of innovation. And so I decided to apply for this magnet coordinator position. And so I sadly left my huge art room with 5 sinks and my amazing group of students, and happily started this new journey as magnet coordinator in February. So it's been great, and it's been a really fast journey, but I am really learning a lot in the process.
So Cassidy, correct me if I'm wrong, a little sidebar here.
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying that the Johnston STEAM Academy Magnet School is the first magnet school in the state of Iowa?
So I believe, I was going to confirm that fact, but I had a conflict in a phone call that I was going to talk to our coach or representative from Magnet Schools of America. So I wanted to confirm that. From what I believe, yes, it is.
Well, and I know that Iowa, and I don't know other states out there that people are listening from, we don't have a lot of magnet schools, and then some states they're very, very prevalent. So for maybe you can give us a little bit of background for those of us who come from states where they aren't that big. You know, tell us a little bit about magnet schools and how they function, and then is the Johnston STEAM Academy Magnet School a traditional magnet school, or is it kind of a hybrid that does things its own way?
Yeah, so those are really great questions. So magnet schools are free, public, elementary or secondary schools, and they can be operated by one district or a consortium of districts, and they typically have a theme. So some themes are STEM, STEAM, language immersion, fine arts, museum, world languages. And so since Johnson has a rich history of Johnson School of the Arts, we wanted to make sure that whatever our theme was as a magnet school, the arts were an important part of that. And so the community and the district picked on a theme of STEAM. So generally magnet schools offer students more of a hands-on, minds-on approach to learning. So there's a lot of inquiry or project-based learning that happens at magnet schools. And so they use the same state, district, and Common Core standards, but the vehicle or the way that they deliver their instruction is different. So magnet schools typically have a lottery where students are accepted in that lottery, so you have to apply, and then it's a computer-generated random lottery, and the students are then accepted into Johnson. So we are a neighborhood school in Johnson, and that we are an existing school that's turning into a magnet school. So we actually only had 40 openings for students across the Cedar Rapids Community School District to join Johnson. So in a way, it's kind of a hybrid in the fact that we are a neighborhood school and only allowing 40 in our first year. Some magnet schools start brand new, and all of the students are lotteried in from throughout the city. Another way that we're unique is our first 10 spots were saved for current open enrollees out of the district, and so that's kind of not very common, but we really want to bring people who live in the Cedar Rapids Community School District to bring them back in and provide them innovative learning opportunities for their children.
Right. So for people who aren't familiar with, East Central Iowa, Cedar Rapids is kind of a bigger urban area for Iowa, and there's lots of smaller communities around that really can pull a lot of kids out of Cedar Rapids. So yeah, you were kind of saying that it's a chance for you guys to pull some of those kids back. So where is the Johnson STEAM Academy Magnet School at right now in the process? I know you guys are months away from opening the doors. I don't know if you can give us details, numbers, timelines, budget, or if some of that is kind of like off limits and you can't talk about, but just kind of wondering where you're at with months out.
Yeah, so the district and staff has been researching magnet schools for over a year and a half now, and so they've been designing what they wanted for Johnson STEAM Academy. So I'm at a disadvantage where I just joined in February, so I've done a lot of catch-up and research, and I'm still learning, and we say failing forward in the process, and so it's been a really fast and exciting learning opportunity for me. And so staff members from Johnson and the district administrators and some Iowa Big high school students and some parents and board members actually went on a visit to 2 magnet schools in Minneapolis. So they went and visited Glacier Hills Magnet School of Art and Science and Pilot Nom STEM School. And so those visits allow them to kind of see a magnet school and how it operates, and to get some ideas for what we want for Johnson STEAM Academy. So the research and planning and designing have really been going on for a year and a half, but now we're kind of going full steam ahead, as we say. I know it's really cheesy, but right?
Oh, boy.
I know. So now we're really moving forward with what exactly do we want Johnson to look like. So I highly recommend anyone go to a magnet school. They're really great places, and it's really interesting. I think that any magnet school you go to, you can take something away from. I actually went to the 2 magnet schools, as I said, and then I chose to go to 3 additional schools in the Chicago area over my spring break, and each one of those provided me with some additional information as well. So we've done a lot of research, and we're close to implementation, and we have a very busy summer. Teachers have been given short-term contracts, so they have 5 additional professional development days that we will spend throughout the summer designing and curriculum mapping and writing lessons and figuring out how we can integrate science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics in how we're teaching. So we are going to align our state, district, and core standards to create this vertical curriculum that will be aligned K-5. So that means that when students are learning life science in kindergarten, they're learning life science in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. And the advantage to this is it allows us to have some cross-graded collaboration, which teachers have already piloted this year and has been very successful. And then it also allows for me to make very mindful partnerships in the community. So, for example, if we have a co-college science professor coming to present to fifth grade on something about life science, then they could also come and present to third grade or second grade, or we can present together. So it really makes those partnerships kind of more appealing for businesses to come in maybe and meet the needs of more students at a time. So we're also spending our time learning about arts integration, project-based learning, understanding by design, the engineering design process. So this is kind of where I come in my role as magnet coordinator. So I get to facilitate a lot of this learning. If you were with us in the beginning of this presentation, I'm presenting to our staff on our Thursday PD day on some project-based learning introductions and how we can make more student-centered classrooms where we can teach 21st century skills through a STEAM-infused curriculum.
You know, I had a really good question there, and it kind of got away from me. You know, I feel like you and we could talk forever about all this curriculum alignment and kind of how you did that. Yeah. I think we're going to have you on in another show, because when you talk about vertical articulation, that was the question. See, I knew if I just talked long enough, it would come.
Yeah, it's fine. I get it.
It was actually a really good question on kind of the chat side. It wasn't a question that got upvoted, but something I just saw that was really interesting. Is there such a thing as a Common Core curriculum for STEAM or for STEM? You know, we hear so much about Common Core and let's align with the Common Core. Are there standards for STEAM education, or are all of us who are adopting STEAM and STEM just kind of winging it and making it up as we go?
Well, that sounds like we don't know what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. So there are STEM curriculums that you can purchase.
Right.
And so for us, we are choosing to take our current standards that we have, because we have district standards and units, and we want to align what we currently have. And so to answer your question, you can buy STEM or possibly STEAM curriculums, but for us, we chose to use what we have and look at it through a different lens. And so what's exciting for me is we're creating the curriculum this way. Other schools can look at that and be like, oh, I could do a little bit of that in my school. And so we're really making it that the other schools can also use what we're doing. And so I didn't mention this, but Cedar Rapids is the second largest school district in the state. And so I believe we have somewhere around 20 elementaries. And so Johnson is kind of near downtown Cedar Rapids. And so we're kind of in the central location. We have 85% free and reduced students who receive free and reduced services, and then we're a little bit over 55% African American students, and our students are really excited and engaged in what we're doing. And there's naturally a lot of challenges, but I think that this is going to lead us in the right direction. So I kind of got on a tangent there, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Johnson so you kind of know where we're at. And if you Google us, you can find us there. So.
Very cool. All right, I have kind of a two-part question for you here.
Sure.
I'm kind of curious about, I guess, what a typical day in the life of a student's going to look like. I know you haven't opened the school, so just sort of what you're envisioning for that. And then also, specific to art, how much art time do you think they're going to have throughout the day? And I guess three parts here. What do you envision the role of arts being in the overall view of the STEAM Magnet School?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently we are planning for students to have an hour of STEAM time a day, each 5 days a week. So we don't really want to separate this time because our goal is to be integrated, right? We want to teach science with technology and engineering. So we want to do that throughout the day. But we also know this is our first year. And so we kind of need to give that time to teachers to allow them to take some separate time to experiment and to really make it able for them to have this sacred time that's STEAM time. So that we also know that teachers will be in different places. So some will be integrating more than others, and some will just do that hour, and that's fine. So when students are learning about trees and weather in science, they may also be reading about science books about trees in their guided reading time.
Right.
They may research a tree outside, and they may draw it or document observations, talk about texture. They may create an iMovie or possibly a PowerPoint presentation, and sharing what they're learning. So I see visual arts as the glue that's really holding it all together.
Okay.
So it's what they create and show their learning. So whether that is, like I said, a Prezi, a PowerPoint, a drawing, a project, a robot, whatever they are making, I think that you can integrate the arts in to what they're doing. So, and Johnson has a rich and successful history of arts integration. So they know a lot about how to integrate the arts into the curriculum. So there'll be a lot of existing arts partnerships that we already have. So to answer your second question, currently Johnson students have art once for 40 minutes, I believe, once every 3 days. So they rotate for PE, art, and music. So the daily STEAM time will be in addition to this, and it might not always be an individual art project per se, but there'll definitely be more art in that time. And we have a spider diagram that we call it, the 8 things that we think are important to us at Johnson. And one of the things on there is to get full-time specialists. So our school, and it's very clear to the district that we want full-time art, music, and PE there to help and support in this integration. So in a time when there's a lot of education cuts, I don't know if that's something that we'll get, but we know that.
Yeah.
But by us keeping it on our spider diagram, that's just really showing that like this is something that we believe can benefit our students and what we're doing with STEAM. So I don't anticipate it cutting at all.
Okay, very cool. And then that's a very specific question. But if you step back from things and look at it sort of in the big picture sense, when this school is sort of envisioned, what, or I guess why do you think there's a need for the STEAM magnet, and what do you think sort of a STEAM-focused school can offer your city?
Yeah, so magnet schools offer parents the option to provide their students with alternative schooling. And so we know kids learn differently. And so while I believe that all students will benefit from authentic learning opportunities and hands-on learning, I think some need it more. And so some students don't fit into this box of education. And so businesses are also saying that students are not coming out of education prepared for STEM careers.
Right.
And so working with businesses to really get them involved, and we kind of say that we're putting the public back into public education. So get them in and partners so they can really be a part of what we're doing and really create this connection for students to understand, like, oh, when I learn about trees and weather in my science class, and then I meet this person who also has a job learning or aligned to trees and weather, then I can understand why it's important. And so I think that the more we can make those connections, the better it's going to make our city and our community, and it's going to really make them value what we're doing. And I think it's just really exciting because it allows them to also have this newfound maybe support for education. And I'm not saying our city doesn't support it, but to look at it through this different lens, to actually be in there and see what we're doing. So we have a quickly growing list of partnerships that we've had in the past as an arts integration school, but some of the things like we're talking with is Co-College or University of Iowa, and having their science practicum students come into our classrooms, and maybe they would even come in during literacy when we are reading books on science units, or when we are creating technology using science. And I know I'm speaking about science a lot because that's what we have been talking with for partnership meetings this past week, so that's kind of where my mind is, but I want to clarify that science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics they're all equal. And so while I keep talking about science, it's not all about science.
So, Cassidy, this might go back just a little bit about how important the arts plays a role in transforming STEM into
Hmm.
STEAM. You know, we threw a poll out on Crowdcast, and I kind of asked people what their thoughts on STEAM education were, and we're pretty evenly split between what I would consider to be the most positive, which is seems like a great next step for the arts and getting integrated, and then the sort of second to most like tentative, which is like, I don't know, we're gonna have to wait and see. Now, I'm glad to
Right.
see that there really weren't any votes for the oh my gosh, this is gonna cause me to lose my job.
Yeah.
I know that there's an engineering program called Project Lead the Way, and a
Yeah.
lot of people call it Project Kill the Arts because they
Huh.
think, you know, their kids are going to get taken away and funneled into this and that, and it's not where the money's going anymore. There's no money for arts. Okay, that's my long-winded thing
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
here's what I wanted to ask you. You know, as all of us are on this spectrum of being concerned and interested and thinking about STEAM, what are some
Right.
messages that you would send to teachers who are contemplating shifting to, you know, more integration and STEAM education away from being traditional as they kind of go through that transition?
Hmm. So I think one of my goals as an art teacher was to create as many connections as possible for my students. So I wanted them to understand why they were learning something, and I wanted it to matter to them and be applied to their lives. So I wanted them to make choice in what they created, and then I wanted it to matter. So it was real and authentic, and I believe that when we give them choices, they're going to pull in, hopefully, and we can guide them how we can integrate STEAM into what they're learning. So, mind you, I taught a modified choice curriculum, so I gave my
Mhm.
kids a little bit more flexibility in how they learned as well. But I think that when you integrate STEAM into your arts classroom, then you're also validating what you're doing because you're making connections to other areas, the content areas. And I think that the more connections you can make, the more valuable what you're teaching is going to be. So, for example, if if our students are designing a garden, they need to know about design. They need to know about color, balance, and contrast. If they're building a robot, they need to know about form and color and proportion. So what's exciting for me is to give them more mindful arts connections, and I'll be the first to admit, when I was teaching color, I didn't really integrate the science into it because I didn't really know, and it was kind of out of my comfort zone. And so I think for art teachers, as much as we can make those connections, it makes it more meaningful for kids, and if anything, hopefully they'll value what you're doing more. And then when they value what you're doing, then hopefully they share that excitement, and then your program flourishes because kids are really excited in what you're doing, and they get how it's connections. And so I know when I was teaching, one of the math teachers, I walked by a project. He did a grid portrait, and the kids were drawing in his class. And I was like, hey, my kids do that in 8th grade. Why did you do that? And he's like, oh, it's scale factor. It's a 7th grade SLE. And I was like, I didn't even know. I mean, I knew that it was mathematical, but I didn't know the specific standard that it was aligned to. And so if I could have taught that same lesson that was going on when they were learning about that, I think that it would help other kids to be like, hey, remember in art when we made that grid drawing, that's scale factor. And so to give them that learning that's integrated with what they're doing, I just think it makes it more powerful because the art is the glue that holds it together.
So I got to ask a follow-up question because I
Yeah.
know I recently just reread your article about your kind of transition to being a choice-based art teacher and kind of when you did that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was a time that you could look back on when you were like oblivious to arts integration and STEAM education, and what precipitated that change, and how did you go about that change? Like, what was it that finally was the tipping point where you're like, I got to get more engineering and process and connection and science into what I'm doing, or was it just a gradual evolution?
I would say it was kind of gradual, but then once I realized it, it was kind of like turning on this light switch that I just really wanted to turn off, but I couldn't. And I don't know why I wanted to turn it off because it was great, but sometimes it's because it's new and you don't know what you're doing at times, but then you're putting yourself in the shoes of kids. So I would say a lot of it had to do with when I really started reflecting on the big ideas of what I was doing. what are my essential questions that I want my kids to know, and why am I teaching them that? So for me, a lot of it came down to, do I really want my students to be able to follow these step-by-step directions for this project? I mean, I was super organized. I had lesson plans all written out with literally step-by-step directions that would say, like, get a ruler, measure 1 inch in, and now draw this and that. And it was great, and my kids were very successful, and they just made, you know, these beautiful art projects, and that is great. And I know that I'm not knocking that at all, but for me, I looked at my students and what they needed, and my students needed to really have some freedom and make choice in what they're doing. And so I think that once I realized that, they naturally brought in the science and engineering and mathematics into what we're doing, based on what they liked, and their passions kind of guided their art projects. And so then when they started individualizing that, I could kind of research a little bit. Like, maybe one student was learning about this one technique, and then I could research it and be like, hey, did you know this? And I also became really excited with it, because I felt like I was learning so much, because I wasn't the expert in the classroom anymore. And that's exciting. I'm a lifelong learner. I already have a master's degree, and I'm going back again. Like, I just never stop. And so for me, that was a really exciting part of adopting a choice-based classroom. I don't know if I really answered your question, but sometimes I get all excited and on a tangent.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you noticed this, but I had a special visitor. My cat, like, somehow shimmied through the door and wanted to get on the podcast, so I had to, like, shoo her. I'm trying to get her out of the way.
That's so funny. I'm hiding in the basement from the kids.
Yeah, somehow the cat got out. So.
Yeah, right?
All right. Well, Cassidy, we've had a bunch of questions come in on the Crowdcast about sort of how you get started, how you incorporate STEAM into your curriculum. So, you know, as the school has kind of taken shape from you, what kind of things have you and I guess the staff there had to do in terms of not only curriculum alignment, but also getting sort of the teachers all to buy in? And I guess, do you have any advice, or do you have any tricks for making sure that everybody on the staff is kind of on the same page or has the same vision?
Yeah. That's great. So I think you said a really great word, vision. So I think really clarifying your vision and your mission, and maybe even writing a vision and mission for your own classroom. Like what are you there to do, and what are you hoping to accomplish? And so I think that when you have this vision and mission, and you're constantly going back to it, and what are we doing? You know, like our I'm going to try and say it by memorization, but we just wrote it. So the Johnson STEAM Academy guides all students to find their passion and interest through innovative learning. I just totally butchered that. But it's like cultivating character, inspiring. Yeah, I'm going to keep butchering it.
That sounded good to me. We wouldn't have known. You could have just faked it, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so I think that, you know, when we are writing our curriculum, or, you know, mapping it and aligning it, whatever, you know, term you want to use, whatever process we're in, we're constantly going back to that and say, like, is this our mission? Does this align to our mission? And then I think it also, on a side note, when you have partnerships, then you need to be very mindful of, is this partnership aligned to our mission? Is this assembly aligned to our mission? Is it aligned to our core and what we're doing? Because there are a lot of really great assemblies and partnerships, but they might not be aligned to what you're doing. And if kids cannot make the connections and transfer that learning, then it needs to be, you know, maybe not something that you participate in. So that was another side note. But I think that as you're writing a curriculum, you really have to get staff buy-in by making them be a part of what you're doing. So for us, and I'm looking at time, I'm thinking, let's just buy a curriculum. And we did research some, and I found some great STEM curriculums out there that I really liked, and there's some online databases that you can use. But for us, we decided that they've been researching it a lot. We have, you know, a large district, many curriculum facilitators, and so we are using our standards and then writing our own curriculum. And so as I watch the staff participate in that, there's a lot more buy-in when they have their own voice and choice in what we're doing and what we have our kids do. And not only that, but it allows them to dig in really deep to what they're going to be teaching, because they essentially were a part of writing it. So I think as much autonomy you can give and support you can give teachers, that can help with the buy-in of, you know, a STEAM curriculum.
So this is kind of a side note, but it's related to that. Did you, as this school is kind of relaunching in a new sort of name and vision, but it's still a building that was there before, did you have to hire a lot of new teachers, or were teachers just transferred from around the district?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our teachers were essentially given an option to leave if they felt that the way we were moving was not for them. So we actually only had one teacher leave, and her husband is possibly going to be, he's a resident, so he might be moving, and so she decided to give her position to someone else who could be there in the long term. So the staff at Johnson is amazing. Like, the climate and culture at that building, it's just outstanding, and those teachers go above and beyond. I mean, I'll be there on a Friday at 4:30, and I'm like, "What are you guys doing? Just sitting in the office? Like, go home." Or I get there, I think I'm early, and it's like a half an hour, and like there's a ton of cars in the parking lot, and they all work together. So, for example, today was moving day because we're moving all of our classrooms. On top of all of this, we have renovations going on. So, there's a guy drilling up tile, and it's super loud, and there's just all this stuff going on. But all of the teachers worked together and helped each other move classrooms. And so just to watch them like sweat and lift and like, really collaborate in a sense on this team effort of, really like that it's more about being a part of a team of teachers at the time, and really working together every step of the way, including moving your classroom. Mm-hmm. And so, we have two teachers who are expecting, and I, walked by, and they got boxes in their hands too. So I just think that it's been really great. We do have two new teachers who are coming in. So we had one leave. Why do we have two? Because we have a new special ed teacher. So. Yeah, so most people stayed, and I think that that's great and exciting. So
the reason I ask is I know that some people would say, well, sure, it's going to be easy to get buy-in on a new school because you could just kind of hire all the people that fit the look and the temperament, the this and that. But so that's kind of something else I'm wondering as we have all these art teachers watching this talk and listening.
Right.
If you were to be hiring a new art teacher, and I don't think you are, I'm not trying to advertise that the STEAM Academy is hiring right now.
Right.
What do you think, as someone who's a STEAM coordinator, are some attributes that an art teacher would have to show that they are able to do this STEAM education in this integration? And I think I know the answer, but I just want your validation on this.
Will you write it down, and then we'll see if you're right?
If I had something near me, I would.
Just kidding. So I think I love the 21st century skills, so that they are flexible and adaptable, and they can collaborate and communicate and problem solve and just really work together with the staff and be open-minded, and that they can really have this huge toolbox of how the arts can be integrated into the classroom. And I really hope, as a choice-based art teacher, that they would give students choice and voice in their classroom. And so I would really hope that the art studio would be a place where students could go and choose, and that their learning in their classroom is also brought into the art studio as well.
That's more or less what I thought you were going to say. Because I think one of the things I think it's important to get out there is that it's not about, I know calculus and I'm an art teacher, so therefore I would be a good STEAM art teacher. That isn't about a skill set or a knowledge base. It's more of a temperament, and like you said, flexibility, being a good coworker, collaborating well with others, seeking advice and input, and kind of team building. So those are the big ones we want out of people. So.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to the new national visual arts standards. Like, I love them. I love how open they are, and they really work well with STEAM and choice. And so really using those questions are so fantastic, and just referring back to them all the time in your teaching, and really, asking kids, like, why are we doing this? Like, what is the importance of this? And so I'm probably going to throw myself under the bus there, but when I transitioned to this role, my replacement substitute, I guess you could say, came in, and she was there for a week, And so we kind of transitioned together, and one of the kids said something about color, and she's like, he doesn't know his color wheel. I was like, well, it's because I haven't taught it. And she's like, why haven't you taught it yet? And I was like, well, I did it, a small lesson on color wheel, but it wasn't a full project on color wheel. She's like, well, why not? And I said, because when I when my students leave my classroom, I don't really care if they all know the color wheel, because they're going to need to know the color wheel just in time at the right time. So when my kids need to know the color wheel, they're going to be all about the color wheel. And I'm like, my handle on some of my accounts is called the color wheel. So like, I'm super obsessed with the color wheel. But I think that for the big ideas, like I want my kids to walk away and have this excitement for art, and to realize that it's all around you, and to want to walk into an art museum when they're 27. And I want them to be able to work together. And yes, I want them to be good drawers. And yes, I want them to know color. But if my student, is dealing with all these other issues and has no confidence and doesn't understand, really is not ready for the color, then I'm not going to spend 2 weeks teaching a color wheel lesson. I'm definitely going to introduce it to all of my students. So it was just an interesting, reflective conversation that we had together, and she was kind of like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And so I just am continually asking myself, what are the big ideas that I want my students to walk away from?
I think you've got an opportunity here to be at the forefront of a thinker and writer on this. The NCCAS and choice-based ed and STEAM ed, what would that all kind of look like? Because I agree with you. I think the NCCASs are written in such a way that they do allow for a lot of flexibility and autonomy, both as a teacher and a student.
Yeah.
But back to some STEAM things. I want to ask you one more question, then I think we should get going on our lightning round.
Sure.
You are doing some kind of innovative new things with the STEAM Academy, and I want you to talk about, I know a lot of people think about and are launching maker spaces and things like that. So are you guys doing anything really cool and interesting like that at the Academy?
Yeah, so we are creating a STEAM lab, and this is essentially my classroom, I guess you could say, but I also will have an office. So this is kind of where it's an innovation hub of the school. And so there will be lots of hands-on learning. It is where the innovation meets STEAM, and so it's a resource to help teachers, so they can go there to teach themselves or in collaboration with me. So a teacher might come to me and say, hey, I'm teaching this lesson on trees. How do you think we can integrate project-based learning? And so I'd say, hey, let's come to the STEAM lab and let's use the resources there, and we can kind of work together and co-teach this project-based learning. So when I was at Roosevelt, I had the opportunity to work with The Option, which is a pilot program for 8th grade students, 85 students in a project-based learning environment. And so I worked a lot with them, so I gained a lot of knowledge from that when I was at Roosevelt. And so it's really exciting to be able to share that knowledge with teachers in the STEAM lab. So the STEAM lab is set up as a 21st century classroom with flexible furniture and seating. So one area is a STEAM lab, one area is technology, another area is share and reflection, and then there's a collaboration area, there's a green screen area. And so the Iowa Big students from the Iowa Big Ideas High School, it's a collaboration between Cedar Rapids College Community School Districts, and they have been working with Story Kenworthy to present to manufacturers for creating this model classroom, functioning showroom. So hopefully get some furniture donated. So they've been kind of presenting to them. So that we have that going on. And then we have a lot of grants written for technologies and devices and are purchasing a lot of supplies there. So with us, we use FOSS science kits from the Bass Center in Iowa. And these kits come to teachers and then they send them back. So if teachers want to refer back to a lesson, they don't have the supplies from the kit. And so to have this lab space with like rocks or whatever science materials you would need, microscopes, they can bring their class in there and really go back to that lesson that they want talked about and say, hey, remember when we were studying rocks? Let's go look at them again. Or let's make an iMovie and let's use the green screen and let's use this collaborative area to create a project together. So it's really this innovative space. Some maker spaces are set up where students can come in and have free reign of creativity. And I believe that's where we'll get, but I know in the beginning and as an elementary school, I don't know that we'll be there right away. I think it'll be more aligned to the curriculum. But as far as giving kids choices in how they're learning, the teachers are already implementing that this year through like STEAM days and a lot of exciting learning opportunities for our kids. So the STEAM lab is going to be a great place. We are waiting for some grants and are going to be purchasing some things as well. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, thank you for kind of sharing some of the logistics with us. I know we had a lot of questions about that coming up on the Crowdcast, so we appreciate you answering that for us.
Yeah.
But I think we need to wrap things up. But before we get you out of here, it is time for our ever-famous lightning round.
Awesome.
Okay, so Cassidy, what was your first job, and was it awful, or did you actually kind of like it?
So I was a lifeguard, swimming lessons instructor, and swim team coach, and I loved it. I was a pool rat growing up. I lived down the pool. I'm a former swimmer, and so it was amazing. I worked there for years, and I was actually the manager, so I kind of worked my way up, so I loved it.
Nice.
And I was a teacher,
All right,
so yeah.
Perfect. All right, so what is your favorite website to visit or favorite social media site?
So I would say Amazon. I love Amazon. It's way too easy to order from, anything for that matter. And then Twitter. I really like Twitter. So it's a great place to create a PLN, so a professional learning network. And I just find myself going to Twitter when I need resources. I can search a hashtag. I find myself going there when I'm feeling down and I just need to be recharged. So it's kind of like plugging myself in every day. And so I'm new to Twitter. If you would like to follow me, my handle is CREINKEN, which one of my colleagues says, "Do you know that your Twitter handle is Crankin?" I was like, oh, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be C. Reinken. But anyway, so I really like Twitter.
That's an awesome handle. I wish mine was cool like that.
I know, right?
That was excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got all serious on us talking about PLNs and Twitter. That's not allowed in the lightning round. So
Sorry.
now you got to pay for it and tell us some guilty pleasures that you have, sort of entertainment-wise, music, movies, something like that.
Okay, so I don't really watch TV, but when I do, I never watch it live. But when I do, I love Scandal. I used to love Parenthood. Grey's Anatomy, and Homeland. I think Homeland's my favorite show, actually. And I like to read. Really, I'm always reading blogs, articles. But were you going to say you've never watched Homeland? You should.
I was going to say that, but then I was going to let that fly. But I was actually going to call you out on the fact that reading is not a guilty pleasure. That's like a good pleasure. So
yeah, but
unless
sometimes
you're reading like Harlequin romance and like trashy stuff.
No, but sometimes I do it when I shouldn't be doing it. Like I have other things to do.
Yeah.
True. All right. If you could name a new Crayola color, what name would you give it?
Oh man, I'm awful at these kind of things. Sassy pants.
Ooh, nice. Not cranking. Not
Crankin'. Crankin'.
Release the cranking.
Yes, there was this sculpture in Muscatine, Iowa, which was like the River Kraken. You should Google it. It's this like public sculpture that they made outside of a building, and it kind of sounds like Crankin'. I'm gonna send you the link.
Nice.
I'm gonna tweet it.
Sounds good. Okay, and then last lightning round question: what is one thing everyone should take time to do this summer?
Read The Alchemist. I love that book.
Great.
Very cool.
I'll have to do that. I'm gonna do that right after I watch all of Homeland on Netflix.
You should probably actually do that first. It's awesome.
Too funny.
All right.
It's kind of opposite than the other shows that I like.
That's all right, though. Well, Cassidy, thank you very much for being our guest this evening.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cassidy. We'll see you later.
Yep. Bye.
All right. I've shut Cassidy down. She's no longer with us.
Well, I thought that was a pretty awesome discussion. I don't, as you know, I don't do a ton of STEAM stuff. So I learned a lot tonight. I thought there was a lot of cool things going on. It was a very, very helpful discussion.
Yeah.
So,
some of the big takeaways I had, because I know not everyone is, a magnet school might not be relevant to you, or a STEAM education program, because I know she's really talking about all things science, math, engineering, but I think, coming from her position as a former middle school teacher, now she's the STEAM coordinator, the thing that really stuck out to me that we all can take away from this is that the arts and creativity, more importantly, is the glue that binds all this together and actually makes it work. You can buy, like Cassidy said, a packaged STEM or STEAM curriculum, and you can do what it says when, but if you have creativity, both as a teacher and you empower your students to have it, that's how all this stuff is really going to work and stick with kids. So the arts is the glue that binds was my big takeaway from that talk.
Yeah, that's very cool. I really enjoyed the discussion. I think this was your second big point, but just how, arts integration and trying to do some of these things with STEAM can really revitalize the school. It can really sort of speak to the kids, get them more interested in kind of what they're doing. I thought that was a very cool point as well. But I want to ask you something. Actually, I know you do a lot with STEAM, with project-based learning. And when you are tying in all of these different subjects with art, or trying to make these connections, do you ever feel like the art aspect can get lost inside of there? Like, do you ever feel like you're losing the chance to do arts for art's sake when you're trying to incorporate science, technology, engineering, math?
Yeah, and I thought you were going to ask a slightly different question, and I didn't want to answer either of them, so I'll reluctantly answer this one. I actually do. I do a little bit, but I think it's kind of you weigh the pros and cons. So I wouldn't say that every single project I do is like, let's build this contraption and let's try this and measure that and collaborate on this, because I do probably one or two big collaborative giant STEAM building, process before product kind of artwork per semester, per class, and it does often feel like I lose some of the aesthetics and some of the criticism. And I think this is where you and I differ a little bit. I teach middle school kids and you teach high school kids, and I feel like part of my charge of being kind of in the middle, I get them from the elementary, I do some magic with them, and then I send them on. I see my job as getting them really excited about all facets of learning again. So I kind of side with Cassidy a little bit, where it's like, okay, you didn't really learn to shade as well as maybe I would have liked, but you're super jazzed about creativity and building stuff and failing, building something big and watching it fail. So I do feel like that is kind of a slightly different charge that sometimes middle school teachers have versus high school teachers. Sometimes I think as a high school teacher, you're kind of polishing off the goods and refining some of the stuff that they have. Have you kind of experienced that watching some teachers that do some of the big STEAM stuff, that they lose some of that?
Yeah, I think so. And like you said, there's not as much focus on those specific, those minute details, and there's more of that big picture stuff. Let's learn to be creative. Let's learn, like you said, to enjoy learning. And then when I have those kids at the high school, we can focus, we can specialize. If they're taking 3 or 4 years of art, I got plenty of time to do, whatever technical skills we need to do. But if they come in and they're excited and they're eager to learn, then that benefits everyone.
And this comes up a lot of times when I think and talk to people. I think sometimes as teachers we fall into this fallacy of either or. Either I can do this or I can do that. And I think you can do both. It's just with like varying degrees. So I don't ever want to say that I don't give a rip about aesthetics or product and what it looks like. I try to give my students a little taste of both, because I know, something that's really fun and exciting and sloppy and messy and who cares what it looks like can give kids a lot of energy and joy, but so can crafting a beautiful drawing. And so I want to give them both of those things. So the last thing I want to say that I took away from this is, this is a really odd kind of technical point to end on, but Cassidy said she built buy-in by having the teachers build it themselves. So rather than outsourcing your PD and outsourcing your curriculum and your mapping, they did it together, and I think that's a really great takeaway, that whether you're just doing some things at your PLC level or district-wide level, build it yourself. And it's kind of fitting that we called this talk, the blueprint for building a STEAM school. There's a lot of ownership in that. So.
Yeah, very true. I'm always a big fan of, not only teacher autonomy that she talked about, but just allowing ourselves to be the experts. I mean, just think about the staff at your school and how many things like collectively you are good at as a staff. And so yeah, I just feel like if we can develop our own, professional development and do those sorts of things in our PLCs, then we're so much the better for it.
Yeah.
I don't think you need those outside sources.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a really good talk, but we should wrap this up. It's getting late. I got that annoying cat I got to take care of. So everybody make sure to check out our Twitter feeds, mine, Tim's, Cassidys. Go check out the Crankin at the hashtag AOE Live for more links and stuff from the discussion tonight. And we might be on the chat roll for a few more minutes just talking and clearing up any questions that you guys have.
Yep, and once we are done with everything here, the podcast will be available on the AOE Live page, and by tomorrow it should be able to download on iTunes, the podcast app, and Stitcher for Android users. Listen to it on your drive, at home in the evening, or even during your planned time. I'm Tim Bogatz, and on behalf of Andrew McCormick, thank you for joining us on AOE Live.
Bye, everybody. See you later.